What's the crack, guys? Welcome back. It's me again, Kazzie, and in today's video I'm going to be going through all of the books that I read in April. In April I read a grand total of 6 books. I say this every single month, but I honestly didn't think I was going to get to that many. By about the middle of April I was still on like 2 books, but I managed to get to 6. I seem to average at about 6 books, which is not bad. Half the time when I tell people I read 6 books in a month, they're like, what? How do you do that? Find books that you like to read, my friends. The first book that I read in April was actually an audiobook, and that was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I fell down the rabbit hole for this one because I read Daisy Jones and the Sixth in March and really enjoyed it. So I felt that The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo was more up my street. It's like old school Hollywood and glam. I love that scene. And when I was in Barnes & Noble in New York, I actually had The 7 Husbands in my hand. It was in the basket. Didn't make the cut, and I am kicking myself for not bringing it home with me because I loved it. Oh my holy sweet mother of Evelyn Hugo, was that book incredible. From the very first word of that audiobook to the very last, I was captivated. I was utterly under Evelyn Hugo's spell. When I was not listening to that audiobook, I was counting down the seconds so that I could be listening to it again. I was listening to it at work, I was listening to it at the gym, I was listening to it anytime that I had a free second just to listen to it, and oh my god, I get it. I get the hype around Evelyn Hugo. It is so freaking amazing. The title pretty much speaks for itself. It's all about the 7 husbands of Evelyn Hugo. She's pretty much like, what? Who was it that had like all the husbands? Joan Collins? Elizabeth Taylor? Yeah. Evelyn Hugo is this very enigmatic cinema icon, and she's never told her life story to anybody. She's given interviews, but she's never revealed anything about her life. The start of the book is her requesting this very specific reporter, and she has no idea why she's been requested, but nevertheless she goes to Evelyn's apartment in New York and sits down with her, and she reveals her life story. From the very first second that Evelyn talked about her life, I was hooked. I needed to know every single thing about this woman. Like with Daisy Jones and the Six, you feel like they were completely real people, and you could just like go onto Wikipedia and look them up, or like with Daisy Jones and the Six, go onto Spotify and listen to their music. I felt like I wanted to go out and watch Evelyn Hugo's movies. Taylor Jenkins Reid created such palpable characters and physically captivating characters that you honestly thought that they were real and not just these creations on a bit of paper. It was incredible. And the audiobook narrators, the one that does Evelyn Hugo when she's actually telling her story, oh my god, I loved her. I could listen to that woman speak all day. I honestly could. I fell in love with Evelyn. I fell in love with every character and person that we were introduced to. Like, Evelyn is by no means a good person. She's by no means admirable, but you just freaking love her. I loved it. So that was like an immediate 5 stars. The second book that I read in April was also a 5-star read, and that was The Princess and the Fangirl by Ashley Poston. Or Poston, whichever way you want to pronounce her surname. If you know the right way, please let me know. This is a companion novel to Geekerella, which I thoroughly loved. I will say that these type of books, if you are not a nerd or a geek or a fangirl of science fiction, a lot of the references might go over your head. I said the same thing about Geekerella. As soon as I started reading this, I was back in that world. I was back wrapped up in all of the fangirl feelings that I have ever had. I am a complete and utter fangirl for Star Trek Voyager, so a lot of this came through for me because it still follows Starfield, because Jessica Sloan, who plays Princess Amara in the Starfield series, she gets killed in the Starfield movie, and she does not want to return to it. She has like a very bad experience with the fandom and social media. She meets Imogen, who looks near enough identical to her. So this is a retelling of The Prince and the Pauper. At the convention, Imogen is mistaken for Jessica, and so she goes onto the panel and she's like, "I'll save Amara," and Jessica is furious about this. But then she's been given the new script to the new Starfield movie sequel, and she loses it, and somebody keeps revealing parts of the script on social media, and so she has to find the person that's doing this, and the only way to do that is to not fulfill her commitments to the convention. So she swaps places with Imogen. She goes on the hunt, and Imogen plays Jessica, basically. And it all goes down from there. It is amazing. I loved it. It's probably not as good as I think it is. I give this 5 stars. It realistically is probably like 3-4 stars, but because of the fangirly aspect to it and the way that Ashley writes about what it's like to be a fangirl and to be a part of fandom, like the good side of fandom, it just makes my heart soar, and I just love it, and it makes me miss being in a fandom at times. Like when fandom was good, like when it wasn't all about social media and, you know, like dissing everybody. I have been very lucky in that I've always been on the good side of fandom. I've never really been part of the underbelly of fandom, as it were. So I thoroughly love this, and I really hope that Ashley continues more books into the Geekerella universe because it is amazing. I love it, and yeah, total fangirl vibes. Love it. Speaking of being a fangirl, I also read Star Trek Voyager Pathways by Jerry Taylor. This is a book that is set in the Star Trek Voyager universe. It's around season 4, season 5, because 7 of 9 is involved in it. Most of the senior officers are on an away mission and end up being arrested and just thrown in this prison where it's basically a free-for-all. And so to keep their spirits up, they tell stories of how they ended up on Voyager. Like Chakotay tells his story of how he joined the Maquis. B'Elanna tells her story about being raised as a half Klingon, half human in like a human settlement and how she ended up with the Maquis. Tom told his story about how he was the son of this well-renowned Starfleet admiral and the pressures that were on him to be a success like his sisters and like his father, and how he ultimately ended up with the Maquis. Tuvok tells his story. I think 7 of 9 has a story. Harry has his story. These babies, oh my goodness. I love these babies so much. They are my babies. How many times can I say babies? I read Star Trek Voyager books so quickly because I just inhale everything that is Star Trek Voyager. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. I know that. I know that. But it is my steaming hot cup of tea and coffee and ice cream and cake and just everything that is good in this world is Star Trek Voyager to me. Also, the thing that I loved the most about Pathways is that a lot of what happened in that book and a lot of what they say as part of their story ends up in the show itself. Because it was written by Jerry Taylor, she was one of the executive producers and a writer on the show, so she knows these characters inside and out. Everything was just these backstories for these characters, because a lot of this is not alluded to in the series. It's kind of touched on here and there, but it's not completely delved into. Like in Extreme Risk, when B'Elanna has, survivor's guilt about the Maquis, they mention Sveta being dead. I didn't realize that with the way they pronounced it, it's actually a woman called Sveta, like Svetlana. And so I was like, oh, right, that makes more sense. I have read this book. I'm pretty sure I own this book somewhere. Lost my copy of it. I've lost pretty much all of my Star Trek Voyager books. So I actually forgot most of what happened in this book. I forgot that Janeway actually gives Chakotay one hell of a bitch slap in it. And I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of living for that moment. I'm not gonna lie, because like, damn girl, I was like, what did you just do? I needed that in the show. I wanted that in the show at some point, but they never gave it to us. Voyager didn't give me a lot of things, but I'm not gonna be mad at it because it's my show. I really enjoyed it. It gave me a lot of background information on some of the characters that I knew and liked and loved. And so it was 3 stars. It wasn't a complete another 5 because it didn't have enough Janeway in it for me. Biased, I know. So it's a 3. On to a 2-star read, and that was Unearthed by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. Everybody describes this as Indiana Jones meets Temple Run, but in space. Basically, Earth has received this message from this planet, like, light years away from a species called the Undying, and they've gone extinct. How ironic. But the people of Earth have gone to this planet and are basically pillaging the entire thing. Basically, think Rey at the start of The Force Awakens. But two characters, what are their names? Jules and Amelia. Jules is a specialist in the Undying language and Amelia is basically a scrapper. They accidentally end up being teamed together and they go to this other temple where the secrets lie within, and they have to like solve all these puzzles to get through the temple or else it's going to kill them. A lot of people say it's like Indiana Jones. I think it's more like Stargate almost, where Jules is like Daniel Jackson. He's the only one that knows how to read the symbols on the wall like Daniel does with ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. But I did not really enjoy this. I enjoyed like the first 100 pages, and then I got to 200 pages and the romance kicked in. I was like, nope. Why does there always have to be a romance? Why? I'm like, these two characters were like at each other's throats. They were like, oh, you're kind of cute. Oh my god, you betrayed me. How could you? I'm going to kiss you now. What? No, I was not on board for a romance. I was on board for like Stargate, Indiana Jones, Temple Run, basically. There were times when I felt like the writing lacked in what they were actually doing. I could not make sense of what was actually happening, so my interest kind of waned here and there. And then it would come back, and then I would just be completely confused. You could say this was like a DNF at about 200 pages. I think it's about 300-ish pages long. Kind of enjoyed what I read, but ultimately I didn't really grasp what was going on, so 2 stars. I'm not 100% certain on the rating for this book. I was going between a 3 and a 4. It's definitely not a 5, but I think it's more like 3.75 if I want to be like completely like analytical about it. And that is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I finally picked this book up because just look at this cover. It is so pretty. I love these red edges. I'm a sucker for red edges, I know. This is not what I thought it was going to be about at all. People say it's like Caraval, or that Caraval was inspired by The Night Circus. I don't really see Caraval in this at all, because Caraval to me is more like a happening, whereas this is like a complete circus. To me, it's almost like The Greatest Showman meets Sanctuary. Kind of. I don't know. It's hard to explain. When anybody talks about The Night Circus, they always like talk about the circus just appears without warning, without any kind of advertisements, and then next thing it's like gone like that. It just like travels around. But this actually follows 2 characters that are in a magical battle. It's this very much ongoing battle between 2 magicians and who can survive the longest. It's weird. It's hard to explain. I loved the start of it. It was amazing. The way that it introduced Celia and Prospero and Alexander, I was living for it. I was like, ooh, this is like Sanctuary. Then it kind of leveled itself out and then kind of dipped in my interest and then brought my interest back to the same level where it had leveled out and then dipped into my... Even the romance, I was kind of like, do I like it? Do I not like it? Even the way that the story is told is not a linear perspective. It bounces all around time. Sometimes it's 1901 or 1888 or 1872 and then back to 1892. I was like, where the hell am I in time? But it never lost my attention. I did enjoy it. I loved the characters themselves, especially the twins. I loved the twins. They were adorable, but like so sassy at the same time. Especially Poppet. I loved Poppet. The way that it ended reminded me of something, but I cannot for the life of me put my finger on it. I just can't. I've been sitting here for like 5 minutes trying to figure out what that ending was like, but I just can't think of it. Nevertheless, it was very much enjoyable. I'm like still torn between my rating between a 3 and a 4, so it's kind of between the 2, or else I just go right, it's a 4. We'll just go with a 4. And the last book that I read in April is a reread for me, and this is the 5th time that I read it, and I read it within like 24 hours. And that is Born with Teeth, a memoir by Kate Mulgrew. I love this memoir so much. Every time I read this, I fall ever more in love with Kate Mulgrew, and I have been a fan of her since I was like 11 years old, so it's been a long time that she has been in my life in some shape or form. If you don't know who Kate Mulgrew is, she is Captain Catherine Janeway on Star Trek Voyager, or most people might know her now as Red Resnikoff in Orange is the New Black. Look familiar now, doesn't you? This is all about her early life in Dubuque, Iowa, where she grew up and where the seeds were planted for her to be an actress by her mother, and how then she moved to New York to study under Stella Adler, and then how she became part of Ryan's Hope, which was a sitcom in the early 70s, I think it was. And how then she became pregnant at 22 and she didn't have the best relationship with the child's father at the time, and how she battled with the dilemma of whether or not to keep the baby and raise it herself or to give it up for adoption. She chronicles all of that, the birth, and how then she wasn't allowed to see the baby, and how she wasn't even allowed to hold the baby or even have a photo of the baby once she was born and once she left the hospital, and then how for 20 years nobody let her talk about it. Like, nobody wanted to listen to her. They were just basically, what's done is done, get over it, move on. And she just needed somebody to talk to. And how then she used a private investigator to find her daughter and reunite with her. It is just so heartwarming, and I'm like cheering her on the entire way. She also chronicles how then she got Voyager and how she fell in love with her second husband, and I'm just like, it's a turbulent book. It is beautifully written. She has the most beautiful writing style, prose, language usage. That's not even a sentence. She just uses language in a way that is so beautiful, and you just want her to be your best friend. You just want to be sat in a coffee house with her, just talking all the time. You just want to be your best friend. And I love this memoir so much, and I cannot wait for her second memoir to come out later on in May. It is going to destroy me. I know it is. I'm not ready for it. I'm really not ready for it, but I'm ready to read something new from Kate Mulgrew. So it's no surprise that I give it 5 stars. And like, even if you're not a fan of Kate Mulgrew, I think it's definitely worth a read. I keep telling my mum that she needs to read this. Haven't succeeded yet, but I will. I might strategically place the 3 copies that I have of this book around the house, and then she'll just like pick it up and start reading out of curiosity. Does that sound like a plan? So there you have it, guys. Those are all of the books that I read in April, all 6 of them. I am very happy with the books that I read in April. Some of them were amazing, some of them not so amazing, but that's all part and parcel of reading. Sometimes you get a dud. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below what you read in April. Do any of these now pique your curiosity? Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!